We're on.
Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Zach, you look like you're you're relaxed. You're on vacation. Where you at?
Yeah, I'm in my element.
Nice.
Think just just hanging out, living the life.
Yeah, yeah. So you guys have is I know you're in the camper, but is it? Do they have like obviously they have electric? You have a generator. You've got bathrooms. Like what is it? Is it glamping or are we in a tent, man? What are we talking?
Yeah, we're not in a tent. Not quite glamping either, I guess, but I guess it depends on your standard, right? Of
Yeah.
of rustic. But yeah, man, doing good. Got
I've
that running everything off a hotspot, so we're rocking and rolling today.
It's working good, good. Yeah, it worked okay on Tuesday if that's what you were doing it from on Tuesday. So
Yep.
it seemed to be streaming live. Otherwise, you got to move the camera. Honey, we got to move the camera. We
Get out the
got to go to
satellite
different.
dish.
Yeah. Oh, do you?
No, no.
Oh, some do, man. I've seen some of those trailers and campers that have. You go to the campsite and there's like this. There's some campsites I think where people like they go there for the whole summer. It's not just
Mhm.
like a weekend thing or a week thing. Like they actually have trailer there, or whatever, and they set up for like whatever 6 weeks they're there or whatever. And I swear to you, I've seen them with the satellite dish,
No
like
doubt.
on a post, just
Yeah.
just past or beyond the thing. So it's like got a clearing and they're sitting there with the screen, with the TV watching the game. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's glamping a little bit.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's cool, I guess. Like, I see a lot of people doing that overall, but like, I don't know. I like just kind of getting back to nature a little bit. I mean, granted,
Oh,
like in a campground, it's not really like that, but um, just chilling, disconnecting a little bit, and you know,
just sitting
slowing
outside in the
down.
morning with your coffee and just listen to the birds chirping and that cool morning air,
Yep.
and by the lake or whatever you are, it's like that's dope. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
No, and it's always fun too. Like first thing in the morning. Like if you get out there before everybody is up, then everything slowly just kind of comes to life. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, watch
But
those squirrels come out from the tree looking for
yep,
stuff.
yeah, they do too. I had one right on my mat the other morning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually used to do a lot of camping with my buddy Keith, and we would rough it. I mean, not rough it, but we would be intense. And I'd say like the only maybe caveat there would be that I would have a blow up mattress,
Okay.
right? So I'm not exactly on the ground, like because regardless of finding the nice flat area for the tent, there's always rocks and little things, and I did that once when we didn't have it, and I was like, next time I'm bringing a blow up mattress, and so I bring the blow up mattress, but one time he came, and we would just have like a grill, or we put the grill that's like, over the fire. Some of them have equipped like where they have that metal thing you just push right over the fire that you made, which is pretty cool. But one morning I remember he busted out. I didn't even know he had this, but he busted out like a little like camping stove, like a
Okay.
propane gas flame stove instead of charcoal. We had that too, but like he had this gas station, and then he had like a pot or a skillet, and he was making like eggs and onions and making omelets, and I'm like, what the? We're getting omelets this morning. I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, all right. I'm like, that's not too bad, Like I don't mind having the stove because you could cook other things. Like we were cooking corn and like not that you can't cook corn on the grill, but
Right.
boiling it. That is, I prefer boiled than grilled. But so how long you out there for? I mean, you've been there obviously beyond Tuesday, so it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You here the whole week?
Yeah. No, another day or so.
Mm, awesome, man. And there's probably others there with all kinds of kids and stuff like that for your kids, and
Yeah. Good.
that's
Good
cool.
mix.
Cool. So
So
yeah, no, my week's been going good. I got a bunch of meetings. We're getting some momentum. We've got possibly an ops person we're working with now, thankfully, so I don't have to do all these like automations and integrations, and I did a connected cell test drive on
Oh, nice.
Monday, and they have a new feature called Connect on Live Voice. So Connect on Live Voice is that it doesn't, like, normally their Lightning platform will actually just connect you to the targeted person. So they're
Okay.
listening, they're waiting for the targeted person. So the live agent, Connect and Sell live agent, will ask for the person that's on your list. If they're not there, they disposition in however which way. If they're there and they get connected, obviously then they hot switch you and you're on the call. Connect on Live Voice does not have the live agent. It's as soon as they hear a live voice, whether that's a main reception, a secretary, or otherwise, you get connected. And I think personally, I started Lightning in the morning. I did like an hour and a half, and then in the afternoon, I did Connect on Live Voice. And I think the afternoon was better only because, and truth be told about the platform, is great, but we really had great cell phone data. And I was just
Okay.
like, I was clicking. Hey, there he is, Saad Khan, famous
Morning.
Saad Khan, written about yesterday. Hey, brother, man. We were talking about you earlier before we got on, and we know you're gonna find your spot. We're gonna find you. People around here love you, and you'll get another shot at it. Otherwise, go independent, like other people were telling you. You'll be better off. You'll make a lot more money. But yeah, and so the platform was like, I think it's the data, right? Like, I had great cell phone data. I was having a call, there was no more than 90 seconds between calls. I mean, it was almost too
Oh,
fast for me. Steve, you always to say, "Oh, Mark, you handle Orem and this," but when you have a conversation, you have a 5-6 minute conversation, whether it goes good or whatever, and then all of a sudden you hang up, and then it's like all of a sudden, like, you don't even blink, and another one comes up, and I was just like, wow. And so I had that call, and then it was like it came, so I had 4 conversations, like 90 seconds after each other, and it was amazing.
wow.
And I said, whatever, I said a meeting and got a couple of referrals. And so it was a solid day on Connect and Sell, but I was only on the phone for 2.5 hours. Like, dialing was just 2.5 hours.
Hmm.
So it was to get 2 meetings in 2.5 hours, and a couple of referrals for future meetings. I mean, I think that's the power of technology. But
Yeah.
but the data, it's the data.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So when you're dialing like that, it's a live agent situation where you've got assisted dialing. How
Yeah.
exactly does that work? I haven't used a
Yeah,
system like that.
so the Lightning version is parallel assisted, right? So it's dialing 9, 10. Actually, they stopped doing that. They used to do like 10 numbers, but I don't know if you've ever dialed in parallel in Orem at
Hmm.
all, but like when you dial and there's 7 numbers ringing, and then they hot switch you to one of them, the other 6 drop off. So
Hmm.
if anybody has ever gotten, like, seen their phone ring from like a spam number or whatever, and then you pick it up and nobody's there, it's because they got switched to another call live, right? And that call
Yep.
dropped, and just the benefit of getting the
Mhm.
drop call. And so what's cool about both of those, what was cool about Orem is that once it cycles around your list, and then you have like all of these, one time connected, but they call it canceled call. So now
Mhm.
you have like 15 canceled calls, and you could start those calls, but Orem suggests that you change the phone number, because now you're going to call that person again. The same person that you kind of hung up on, you didn't personally hang up on him, but the
Right.
machine hung up on him. So they might have picked up and been like, hello, hello, and there's nobody there, and hangs up, gets pissed off. And so now you're like, change the phone number, right? So you could change the phone number, and then you could dial them again, which is really cool. But what happens is that you lose whatever other calls. And Connect and Sell used to pride them, like it was a big thing. Oh, we could dial 10 numbers, 12 numbers at a time. You don't even really want that, because if you connect with one person, then you lose the other 10,
Right.
right? So they dropped it down to 6, right? And so it dials 6. And so the live agent basically is, you know, let's say I'm calling into Celex, and, it's like they say, somebody says, "Hi, it's LX," and the live agent will say, "Zach Bauer," and they'll say, "He's not in today," and they say, "Okay, thank you," and that's it, and then they mark it user not available, like you're not in today. Like they're not gonna go, well, who else can I speak to, or can you put me through to somebody else in the department? It just doesn't happen. They're looking for
Right.
the target person. And so if it's a phone tree, they navigate the phone tree. If it's they're no longer there, they mark it as such, which is great. So that back end data is tremendous. All that work that BDRs waste their time with on a day in and day out basis to a certain degree
Hmm.
is now being taken care of behind the scenes. And all you need to think about is the caller that's going to pop up on the screen that you're connected to, and you start talking. Connect on live voice, though, you'll get that assistant. Like if there's a reception, if you're calling the main number, then
Hmm.
you'll just get the person who answers the main number. If it's an automated thing, it won't. It won't. It will still navigate the phone tree, but it won't just hang up. It'll
Right.
wait for that live voice potentially. So if it has to navigate the phone tree first, it'll do that. Very similar to what the live agent would do. But the difference between Connect on Live Voice, I probably shouldn't say it. The difference between Connect on Live Voice and Lightning is price, right? Because they're eliminating the live agent from that. So they're able to offer it a slightly lesser price than their normal product,
Okay.
which is about $3,000 a month. It's about something like that, 3,000 to 5,000 a month, depending on how much you need to use it or how many calls, dials, whatever it is. And then the Connect Online Voice you can get for like 1,800. So it's not so bad. They're trying to compete, I think, with Orem to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like Orem's probably a parallel dialing is probably at about 1,200, I think, or a month or something. And I think you can get Connect Online Voice, I think, probably for 15 or 1,800. So it's close. It's not bad, but man, when it's coming that fast, it's definitely it takes I wouldn't say it's not like it's not something like I used to hate. Like one time I remember an old boss said, only you can use that, Mark, and I felt bad because I think people could use it. I don't think it's very difficult to use. You just have to be on top of your game. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to understand that as soon as you hang up the phone with that one person, you might get another one within a couple of seconds. There's no downtime. you know if there's any downtime, it's like just a couple of minutes. And that also
Right.
again depends on the data. Like if you have good data, you're gonna get a connection really quick. I had a campaign I was working with. We didn't have such great data and they weren't picking up the phones. And like I remember having 100. I think the worst I ever had was like 118 dials before I got a connection.
Oh wow.
That's terrible. Just terrible. You should have a connection. They say probably somewhere between 20 and 40 dials. Anything over 40, it's like check your data. You know what I mean? Like try something else or what's the word? Refresh your data, go back, go to another data source. Maybe it's not good or check your ICP. Maybe you're just calling people who don't answer the phone. But anything over 40 is really not good. This was like I think my first call yesterday on the Connect Online Voice was 18 dials, which is fast because as soon as you open it up, it's like six right away. And then another for 4, 3, 2, and then it's 18 within a minute. It was pretty quick. It's fun though. If you're good at what you do and you got your pitch down and you could read the screen pretty quickly because it pops up and it gives you all the data of that person, right? So you see their name, their title, company, previous conversations if you had any or whatever activity. So you're able to launch right into it. It's pretty sick, man. I don't think I could live without it.
Yeah.
That's
No,
just
it
me.
would it would be hard to shift away from something like that when you can do that kind of volume. Um, and the thing I always liked about power dialers and parallel dialers is it takes that little voice inside your head that like where you sit there and you look at the phone number and you're like, man, like you tell yourself a story sometimes, especially when you're a newer rep. Like, hey, I'm not gonna call this person because like they yelled at me last time, or maybe they're not in the right seat, right, to have a conversation. But the power dialer eliminates that, right? Because it takes that pause and the thought out of it, and it just goes. And then,
Yeah.
you connect to more people, and inevitably, if you're doing the right things, and saying the right things and asking the right questions, then it leads to the right information and meetings, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, it eliminates your inner voice telling you not to make that call, or oh, I'm not going to call this guy cuz he's this, and or he's not the right. Oh, but it's like, yeah, you don't have that choice, right? So it almost forces you to talk to the people you wouldn't necessarily have spoken to, or you would have tried to avoid because you want to call the DM. And so, yeah, I've experienced that where I'm like, and it also helps you to make the call. You don't have to click. You don't have to do the dial. Once you click that dial, boom, and it goes. You're in it. It's like you're in this, like, you got to strap yourself in, and and there's no, like, you could pause it. Don't get me wrong, but like, yeah, you eliminate that little voice in your head that's telling you the wrong thing to do, and the avoidance one.
Yeah.
But I think that you know I don't know. I wanted to talk about. I know we mentioned Sod, and we mentioned, some companies. Look, man. We had some experience with that. Even, the title Celex transition. You never know what's going to happen. You don't know what VC kind of people are going to want, what expectations are, and this industry is volatile. Like, especially for BDRs, like SDRs. Our job, bottom line, is to get meetings, and to have conversations, and to drive interest and curiosity, and get get meetings on the calendar. And it's more than that. But if you're not doing that, then and you're not trying to figure out, how do I do that, or what the problems are and how can we solve them, then, look, I don't really actually blame a lot of management or VCs to say, hey, we need to cut a little bit of fat. Um, it's that's the bottom line. You have to produce, and if you're not producing, then, like, look, I'm an experienced guy, and I was on a performance plan, a PIP, as they say. Um, and I did what I could to get off of it, and to prove that I belong where I was. And
Right.
so I'm not a big believer in PIPs. I mean, in my past careers, people who went on performance plans, it was a death sentence, right? It was like, forget it, And part of it was because none of the middle management really knew how to help us in any way. They didn't necessarily, I mean, this is just a matter of culture in different companies too, but they didn't really dig in. Like, I never really heard, I was never on a PIP back in these days, but at Sherwin-Williams, man, they would put people on a PIP, and it was like they didn't even make it 30 days. Some of them left right away. Some of them left after 2 weeks, because if they didn't see any progress in 2 weeks, even if they were told it was a 30-day PIP, and they were just like, they were left out to dry, is the way I looked at it. And I hated that. Like, as a sales leader, for me, and if I was ever in that role, and I've been a sales leader, I want to try to help them.
Hmm.
I want to try to figure out, how can we make this person turn the corner, as they say, and work with them until they can. And you know what? If they don't turn the corner, or if they just don't get it, or they don't hit the goals, then we maybe go another month, try something else. And if that don't work, maybe you have to face the fact that this particular role in this job with this industry and this product, whatever it is just not right for you at the moment, and you part ways. But at least you put your best effort forward, right? I don't think management typically presents the PIP in a way to make you feel good about it, right? Like, they don't say, oh, this is a performance. You said it one time to me a couple of weeks ago, a performance plan to improve your performance, right? Like,
Right.
it's a performance improvement plan. And if you don't work with that person to improve their performance, then how could you expect them to succeed?
Right. Yeah, if it's just a target that you have to hit and no plan to actually hit that target, then that all that is, it's a warning that, you know, you're about to walk out the door, you know.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I think they can be done well and done correctly, and they can be done incorrectly. And it just depends, you know, very much on the state of management and the state of the company, you know, and like who's pulling the strings and making that decision too. Is it a board that's like far removed from your actual seat and what you're doing day to day, or is it, you know, more local because it's a smaller company that doesn't have that sort of influence? But yeah, at the end of the day, it should be, you know, it should be a plan if you're
Oh,
gonna go that route.
absolutely. And like I've seen it where, like, again, where they give him the plan and then they don't even talk to him for 30 days. Because they're remote, or like back in those days we were outside sales reps, right? So yeah, we had phones, obviously we had cell phones, but like flip phones back in 2003, right? But it was like they would not even check in with them. It was like you were hanging, some of these managers would hang people out to dry because it was such a churn business, a turnover in that business. An outside field sales rep, especially in the New York area, is a tough job. Traveling around, knocking on doors, blah blah blah. It's just like, there's more to it, but it's like they didn't really provide that support. I think if you're going to put one of your BDRs on a performance plan, you're literally, I don't know about you, but like I'd be checking in almost every day. Like at the end of every day, I want to hear from you how your day went. What did you
Yeah,
learn? What did you work on? Really help the guy, help the gal,
yeah,
get past it. Cause, you know, you got to give him a chance. Otherwise, look, Amy Vola says this all the time. It's the VP of sales is probably the most expensive person to place and then lose, but it's expensive to place and lose BDRs, and having to let that person go after all the work you did to hire him, recruit him and hire him and then train him, and then you managed him out instead of
hmm
managing him up. So it's a strange thing, but I mean, look, like for me, like I always say, if I'm in that role, like I was in that position in January, I went to my boss and I said, I need help. There's something about this account. I can't figure it out. I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And, and and I didn't want to say, well, I'm me, but like even me, like not everybody's good at every vertical and every account and everything, and so I asked for help. And that's the most important. I think one of the most important things a sales rep at any role, AE or otherwise, could have is know when to ask for help, right? Like, just know you don't have to give up. And I didn't give up. I just said, look, I tried this, I tried that, I tried this. Do you have any suggestions? And so I think if you do that also, that's part of that, you know, relationship you need with your company or with your management is that you should feel comfortable going to them. And I always tried to make my reps when I was in leadership roles comfortable to come to me and say, I don't understand this, or I don't know how to do this, or I need help to do this. And I think that's critical.
no doubt. So I have some visitors here that are not entertained that I'm
The dog? Oh, your
on
kids.
the on
Oh.
this. Yeah. Yeah, like I think the other part of that too is it's a two-way street, right? Like management should be checking in with reps, but if you're a rep that's serious about, you know, completing that plan, you should also be checking in, you know, and doing the things and taking the steps. Is that always going to be the case where that's like where it's set up or you're in an environment where that's doable? No, but if you are and you can, then take that opportunity, you know, because I think it'll go a long way, you know, if you show that effort and you know, do the things to make it happen.
Yeah, and then look, if at the end of the day, if you happen to unfortunately be let go, and it was for reasons that you couldn't control, knowing and this is really what's exciting these days, is that you have community. If you're building community, or if you're involved in the community, and you're, whether it be Rev Genius or SDR Insider or any of them, right? Like you're gonna find your way. People are gonna recognize you, and you'll get some opportunities. You know, not you don't have to look at it as, oh, I'm back in the job market. You unfortunately just have a hiccup. Today I don't think I've ever really. I mean, there have been some times in my career, it's 27 years, that I had a gap, or like a small gap, where I had to start from scratch again. We didn't have community back in, in the early 2000s, and late 90s, or even late 2000s, like 2010, even still, we didn't have this, what we have today, Slacks and Discord channels, and various communities. I mean, I don't even know when that started. Probably got really good, got really big, obviously in COVID. But when did that stuff start? Maybe 2012, 2013, 2014, right? And so I still had to go out, and as soon as I got let go or fired or whatever it was, or I left the company. I usually left the company, I went to another company, I had another job. But when I got let go, I've gotten let go twice in my career, and I was back on the job market. It was like boom, I had to do my resume, you know, and and start sending it out, and go to Indeed, and like, I still have an Indeed account. But I think today, now you have, so a lot of us have this community we can turn to, and people that give you the opportunities, um, to shine somewhere else. The thing is, though, I think, like, you can't, and I don't know if any of them are feeling this. It's not a failure. You didn't fail. And even if you got let go because they had to cut the fat, and you were just either last in, first out, that kind of thing, or maybe you just weren't cutting it as much as maybe others, and so they had to make a decision, it doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you can't go do it again, or start again somewhere else. I mean, shit, I'm started again at 46 years old. And But I went independent, and like I became an independent. And that's always, everybody always has the option to do that now with Cellx, and some, I just saw yesterday. Did you see Bravado? Did you see that thing with Bravado? Anybody see Bravado made
What
an
what's
announcement.
that?
They made an announcement that they have a very similar marketplace.
Yeah, I saw rumblings of that, I don't know, a week or two ago, that they were working on something. I don't remember where I saw it, but um,
Yeah,
yeah,
it came through on an
it'd be
email to me,
did
like
it?
directly from Sahil.
So they're like really pushing it now, huh?
Well, I was like one of the Bravado. I remember joining Bravado like as a beta, or something like that. It was like a beta, and I'm not actually in it right now. Like I didn't pay for it. It was like, come on, check out the platform. But really early, like late, like last year, and of course, corporate bros involved in that, and Sahil's a great guy, and I never really understood what they were doing over there. It's almost like a pavilion in a way, but different. And so, yeah, I got this email yesterday, and I was like, what is this? Let me check this out. Right. And so I'll pull it up for a second here, but it's basically almost very similar in the pricing structure, even like 5,000 a month plus $500 a meeting. Here it is. It's Yeah, it's pretty. The economy has forced most companies to pause sales hiring, but companies are still waiting to pay a lot for new customers. They just can't hire reps full time right now. That's why we built Bravado Flex.
Hmm.
That's what it is. Fast growing companies like Warmly and Teamflow are ready to pay you up to 50% commissions on deals closed, or $300 or $1,000 per qualified meeting scheduled. So it's similar, kind of deal. But interesting, they're all there. There was another. I threw something at Dean a couple of weeks back, a month ago, to was another company that even has a platform, but they're overseas mostly. They're like
Mm.
all over the world, not that big in the United States, but in like 100 other countries, and thousands of reps and thousands of companies, and they've been in business for a long time actually. And it's a marketplace very similar. So the concept's not new, but like, I appreciate uh I appreciate it all because I was an independent, and I'll be on the platform soon enough. As soon as I get this company built.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think it's healthy though, right? Because like it makes everybody better to some degree. Assuming things are done the right way, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wanted to say this though. Like, I feel like I like these marketplaces. I used to be independent. I believe in the Celex concept and everything. But if you think about like this model, yeah. If you think about the model, it just allows you to like kind of do what you want. Like work as you want. Have that. Even though a lot of people working from home, you have this that kind of adds to your work life balance. I mean, it's done wonders for me. I mean, I used to be out on the road every day,
Hmm.
like 6, 7 hours, 8 hours a day. I'd leave at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I'd drive to the city, drive around Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, blah, blah, blah. And then I wouldn't get home sometimes till 7, 8 o'clock at night. Um, when I was single, that was okay. But when I was married, it was kind of okay. My wife was an academic and she was like, had her own career going. But now that I have a child and, he gets home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and wants to go to baseball practice and all these things. And so, working from home has allowed a lot of people to really get back with their families, I think. And it's an amazing thing. And then when you have sort of like this platform that could give you whatever amount of hours you want, whenever you want, really. I mean, if you're going to make calls, obviously, it's got to be some time between the 9 to 5 range, right? But
Hmm.
other than that, you can do emails, you can do lead gen, whatever. It's like you can put in those extra hours on top of like a full-time job or even on top of another job and make some money and make some really good money. And I think it's just given a lot of people a lot of options. I think it's actually probably saved some marriages, you
Yeah,
know?
it's a really cool thing to be able to work remotely and kind of, I guess, at your own pace, if you
Yeah.
will. Like marketplace situations like that. Like suppose you move into a role where you're not doing as much outbound, but it's an area where you thrive and you want to keep that skill set sharp. Like
Yeah.
that's even a good opportunity there to jump in, maybe take on a part-time account and do some of that outbound and keep your skills up
Yeah.
and make some money along the way. Totally, totally neat concept.
I like how you think about it as like exercise.
Well, it
You like
is. It
keep your
really is. I
keep
mean,
your chops
it's.
up.
I mean, if you think about it, like tying it back to the conversation about pips, like a big part of that often is, falling into a rut, right? And like
Sure.
you all know, like as salespeople, as people in outbound, like ruts are the thing that can end you like really quickly because it's a mindset thing. And the
Mm,
longer that you stay in that rut, the harder it is to get out of. And it's kind of a compounding thing, right? So if you don't figure out a way to kind of get that momentum started and going
mhm,
again, like if you have a bunch of uh, you know, call blocks where you're not booking meetings,
mm,
pretty soon that can turn into, oh, what am I doing wrong that I'm not booking meetings?
mm,
You slip a little bit, and then it's just this constant cycle that you're in. So I think
mhm.
staying fresh with it, staying sharp, it is like an exercise, and you've
Yeah.
got to work that muscle, like your conversation muscle,
Yeah.
um, and your
True.
curiosity muscle. It
Yeah.
needs exercise for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I definitely like, and it's funny tying it back to like the Orem Connect and Sell thing, like when you strap in, it's like I'm getting on the treadmill, you know, and
Hmm.
if you don't keep running, that thing's still spinning. You know what I mean? So like I could definitely I could see that. That's funny connection. Like, but yeah, I mean it you know, look, let's talk about ruts because you know a lot of people get into it, and I think that you know, I think that's you know, pursuant to my post yesterday about what did people learn from today, and I always preach this, of course, and it's like, hey, man, detaching. We all heard this, right? Detach from the outcome, right? Detach from the outcome. I don't say detach from the outcome, but detach from the goal. Like I had a conversation yesterday. There was some people ran going back and forth on LinkedIn, and maybe it was on my post or whatever, and they said, oh, you know, somebody said, well, they got into that. They said, "Oh, well, you have to detach from the outcome. Don't be so connected to those things." And I think what he really meant was the goals, right? The goal is to get a meeting. Detach from that, you know, because if your whole sole focus is get a meeting, get a meeting, get a meeting, right, and it gets in your head and it comes across in the way you speak. I've even listened back to some of my calls where I knew that I was like, I wanted to get this meeting or I was anxious or whatever. You could hear it in my voice. You can't hear it when you're doing it, right? It's kind of hard sometimes. So listen to them back. That's why I always preach, listen to your calls, good ones and bad ones, right? But you know, I even heard it, you know, it comes through and people don't realize it, but don't detach from the outcome, just detach from that goal that your manager set for you. And like and focus on those other things like having a conversation, handling the objection, getting the person to let you actually pitch, getting them to actually stay on the phone for more than 15 seconds. Like I think that those things are worth a lot for mindset purposes, right? In that, you know, like when I say I teach my gamification theory about calls, right? You got through your
Hmm.
first opener, you get 2 points. You get through the first any objection, you get a point or 2 points for each one of the objections that you handle. You learn some business intelligence, give yourself 3 points. You got an internal referral. Oh, I'm not the right guy, but you need to talk to somebody else. Who is that? Great. What's his name? What's his number? Get those things. That's worth 2 points. Have a great conversation with somebody, and then all of a sudden go, you know what? You got a big network, right? Do you think anybody in your network could value or find some value in a conversation like this? Would you mind
Hmm.
giving me a referral? And you know, probably 7 out of 10 will go, I don't know. I'll send it to you if I think of it. Are you sure? Nah. But like, you know, and that's a hard one to get. So I give myself 4 points for that, you know. And so at the
Yep.
end of the day, you know, I didn't get any meetings in that hour and a half, but you know what? I got 35 points. Within that 35 points, I've got 3 referrals that I can probably turn tomorrow or the next day, next week, next month, right? And so
Right.
those are the things that always kept me like one when I figured that out, when I learned that learning is more important than all the other outcomes, I started having so much better conversations.
Yeah.
You know, you could hear it in my tone. You could hear it in just my even keeledness, if you will. You know, you always said that like, "Oh, you're so calm," you know? And I'm like, I just don't care, you know, almost. If somebody's gonna like be a jerk off, you know, like come talk to me when you've had 100 people be jerk offs to you, you know, and tell me how you feel about it now. Of course, those people out there listening or otherwise who are going to go out today and they're going to make the 65th phone call of their career and they get hung up on, come back when your 6,500th phone call you get hung
Yeah.
up on and tell me how you
Yeah.
feel. You're going to feel differently. It's just the way it is. You're not going to be so attached to it. You know, you're not going to think nothing of it. You're going to hang up and move on to the next call.
Yeah. Absolutely. Kellen talks about that a lot too, being anti-fragile, right? And that's really the thing. You got to be unshakable, and it takes a while to develop that. But I find myself in the a similar spot. Like if people yell at me now, like I usually just laugh it off. It doesn't even bother me. Once in a great while, like if it's like a real personal dig, like it'll shake me for a few minutes and then I'm like right back at it.
Yeah.
Like I had a guy a while ago tell me, you know, you're gonna need more energy and like you're never gonna make it in sales and da 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 da. And I was like, oh man, like it shook me for a minute, right? But he was right. Like on that call, my energy level, I think it was just one of those days where it wasn't like a huge connect, right? Like, and I was probably just kind of going through the motions a little bit, and he called it out, and I was like, dude, like he's so right. So I called him back, a few days later, and I was like, hey man, like we talked the other day, uh, like it went through my whole spiel with him, and it ended up being a great call, and moved into pipeline, which is awesome. Uh, but yeah, just being aware and being present is such a big deal, and just not letting things you know own you. Like it's if people yell at you on a call, right? Maybe it's your approach, maybe it's something you said, maybe it's how you said something, but oftentimes, and equally as much, it's often just the person on the other end of the line is having a bad day, or they have a shitty personality, or one of those things. Like it can be any of those things, but not to get hung up on it is the goal, right? Listen
Yeah.
to the game tape, go back and figure it out. There will be indications whether or not it was a you thing or a them thing. And if it's a you thing, fix it. If it's a them thing, you can't fix it. So
No.
just move on. That's it.
My wife hates me because I sometimes because I'll give the benefit of the doubt to the other person. And she's like, "You always do that. You always think, oh, they had a bad day, so we should give them the benefit of the doubt." And I'm like, if you don't do that, like the opposite of that, it just doesn't do anything for your heart and your health. Like it just, if you're gonna get angry or you're gonna get upset, it's like, where does that get you? And so I just go, woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That was always my line. Hey, woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I don't know ever what that means. My father started saying that like 50 years ago. And he's where how do you wake up on the wrong side of the bed? I don't understand what that means really, but if you have, especially if you have a wife on the other side, you either wake up on your side of the bed or you don't wake up, so hopefully you wake up. But it's like yeah, you, you can't. Like I had this guy the other day, he answered my question, hey, is this something that would, and he was just like kind of like, no, we have that covered. VP of sales, right? And he was quick just to roll off and get me off the phone. And like, he didn't hear it, but I've been using like, "You gonna do me like that?" Real Brooklyn like, right? "You gonna
Yeah.
do me like that?" Like what? Oh, click. And that's how I have fun with it, right?
Yep.
Like that's what makes me laugh about it. Like, oh man. Whereas like 25 years ago, I remember I was on the phone like boiler room style, trading floor style, right? And like somebody would hang up at me, I'd be like, I must have broke like 6 phones. I swear to you. Like the first time I broke the headset, my boss just sat there in his chair like this, like just shaking his head, like,
Just
go
another
get
one.
it, go get another phone. And there happened to be like this AV room,
Hmm.
that had like hundreds of phones and parts and things. And so he's like, just go get another receiver, like there's nothing to do that with here. Like, what am I gonna do? Throw my headset down? Like,
Hmm.
there's no phone to smash down on the table. But that reaction didn't help me. It didn't really. It just created more angst and anxiety, and so I don't blame those even younger folks who are just getting into the game. Like they get frustrated with people hanging up on them. It's tough. It's a tough gig, but big reward, right? Like
Yep.
if you hit your numbers and your company is actually going to pay you what they tell you going to pay you, it could be big. I used to watch a guy named I think I told you this story. I used to watch a guy named what was his name? Brian Burns. He used to have, I don't know why it don't come up in my feed anymore, but he has a podcast slash thing like we have SDR Insider. He has the brutal truth of sales and
Hmm.
marketing. That's what it's called, the brutal truth.
Yeah.
And
Great
he
stuff.
used to spend like every morning he'd post, he was outside walking, and I think he's in San Francisco area, right? And he'd be
Mhm.
walking, and then like, he's got the cell phone here, whatever, and you could see behind him and all this stuff. And he used to be funny too. Like he'd like pretend to have a phone conversation with his boss, and
Yeah.
he would make fun of like those relationships that you have with
Great
your
stuff.
boss and stuff.
Yep.
And but the thing was that he every time I seen him out, behind him were all these mansions, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, so one day I texted him. I used to chat with him like DMing and whatever, and I said, "Do you drive into that neighborhood and walk around like just so it looks like like I'm like busting his balls? Like you don't really live there, do you?" And he
Uh-huh.
actually does. He has a monster house too, but he was like, in this neighborhood, you wouldn't believe it, but these aren't ball players and rock stars, ball players and rap stars. These are
Mhm.
salespeople that own these
Wow.
houses. Maybe senior salespeople, maybe CEOs at this point, but salespeople.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's cool, because it is true. I mean, look, there are people, if you get into the right role and you're an AE and you're closing $1 million deals, you're going to wind up making $1 million, or $600,000 in commissions. I mean, that's, you know, and then the day when you said, oh, I should have been a doctor, that goes away.
Yeah.
Doctors aren't making that kind of money anymore, especially the new ones. They're not coming out of school and making that. They're saddled with, like, even my buddy's wife. She's a major ER doctor, and she's still paying off her loans, and she's 40.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and to that end, like hopefully if you're becoming a doctor, you're not doing it because of the money, right?
no,
First of all. But beyond that, like the cool thing about the environment we're in now, especially when you have things like the marketplace and different avenues to get into, tech or sales in general, is that the barrier to entry is so much lower. You don't have to go into, massive amounts of debt or any debt really, to become, you know, a, a competent salesperson and do it very quickly. Um, much faster than you could probably years ago because there's so much more information available at your fingertips,
oh
and
yeah,
networks like LinkedIn and things like that. So
oh
pretty
yeah.
cool stuff.
That's what gasses me up, for my career now. I think about, and I talk about it all the time. When I was handed the phone book,
Hmm.
and now I can look up Zoom Info or Seamless or Sales Intel and get someone's direct number. And it's almost like I'm almost disappointed sometimes when the number's not there. And I have
Hmm.
to, like, I'm like, shit. But meanwhile, I spent most of my career, the first 10, 15 years of my career, dialing through phone trees and talking to main receptions. And I'll say this, though, for those people who get locked in, to any kind of tech that's dialing for them, or their ops people are providing them lists with direct dials,
Hmm.
and you're not getting anybody on the phone, or you're not getting connects, and you're not getting email, you're not just connecting with those people, you got to stop and say, hey, let me call the main operator. I mean, granted, the main operators in some cases don't exist anymore. And you can't do that. You need the direct dial, but give it a chance, give it a shot. The old trick was like when you call somebody, you get their voicemail. If you're calling, not their cell phone, but if you're calling their office phone and you get their voicemail, press zero. I think that's going to be my post today. It's just going to be press zero. you know, because nobody does that anymore. At least I hope they do, but I think they don't because they got these direct dials, so they don't. But press
Hmm.
zero. Now, granted, that might not get you anywhere. It might just take you right back to the beep again, or it might hang up on you, which has happened a few times to me this past week. But it might get you somebody else. Like, who's the second in charge? Like, if I get somebody on the phone, we used to dial, like, if their phone number is, you know 908-878-7705, dial
Hmm.
7704.
Yeah.
See who you get. Because if you're not having conversations, it's like that muscle thing, the exercise you're talking about. That's the biggest problem. We talk about this all the time, right? At
Yep.
bats. People don't get at bats, they're not going to get any better, right? And so I always say, if you can't get the at bat with the actual person who you can have a conversation with, or you want to have a conversation with, like some kind of level manager, or even if it's a systems admin, like just somebody, like get somebody to talk to you. pitch the secretary, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Like if you're a junior and you haven't gotten a lot of pitches out, man, how do you pitch a secretary that answers the phone? It's very simple. Hey, when she says, "What are you calling about?" Don't give them the entire pitch like you're talking to the DM. Give them a little bit. Hey, I work for so and so, and we actually do this, that, and the other thing. Because you know what? People might be afraid to say that because they're afraid that that person might say, that receptionist or that secretary might say, "Why don't you just give me your contact information and I'll pass it along?" It's very likely that they might. They might say, um, you need to email that person or whatever you're trying. That's fine, right? But they might say, "Oh, you don't need to talk to Jim. You really need to be in this department." Well, hey, shit, I just been calling Jim for the last 2 weeks every day. And now because I got out of my way and I asked the reception, I pitched her, so to speak. I said to her why I was calling, which I was originally afraid to say because I just figured she would shut me down because I'm a sales guy. Now she's pointing me in the right direction,
Yep.
or at least in a different direction, right? And so I hope that more and more people are doing this because if you're not getting into conversations, with the DM that you want, you got to find somebody else to talk to.
Yeah.
And
And
you'll be very surprised if you just pitch that secretary half pitch, if you will, you might actually learn something.
yeah, absolutely. I wrote about this the other day too, with running into situations where all you've got is office lines. Obviously, like having better data would be a, like the ideal solution, right? Where you've got more mobile numbers to dial directly. But if you're in a situation like a lot of reps are, where you don't have that information and maybe it's out of your control, in terms of getting mobile numbers or whatever you need, then you need to take the steps to go through those things and talk to the people that are gatekeepers, right? Talk to those secretaries, have those conversations and figure your way through that. You've got to navigate it because like there's no excuse to not do the work just because it's not an ideal phone number. And there was a decent thread on this post that I made the other day about that, about, oh well, you should only be dialing mobile numbers. Well, yeah, like that's ideal, but there's also something to be said for the art of navigating and getting through a gatekeeper, right? And converting that person from somebody who's an obstacle to somebody who's actually your internal champion, right? There's been many situations over my career where I've reached out to a gatekeeper, you know, and eventually I've had enough conversations with them because I've called so many times that like you're on a first name basis with that person. They know who you are when you answer, and then all of a sudden it's like a jovial conversation,
Yeah,
and they're doing what they can to get you in front of the person that you need to speak with. So
yeah,
I think it's kind of naive and it's narrow-minded to say that, oh, you should only be calling mobile phones ever. It's definitely the most efficient way to do it, but I think the other side of that coin is you need to have conversations with the people you can have conversations with and do what you can with what you got where you're at. And
yeah,
uh,
yeah. There's no ending the day and going, nobody picked up. Like, how depressing is that?
yeah.
Like, I've had those days, be honest, but it's like, oh, like I remember at Title once in a while, we would midday or something, and we'd collaborate, and people would be like, "Oh, are you?" Or you'd get a Slack message that say, "The connect rate is really low." Great,
Mhm.
yes, I know that. I'm experiencing it too. Well, what are you doing in order to change that? And I think that when they say that, it's more of like because we're calling the direct dial, we're not getting anybody to pick up, and you'll have those days. So what are you going to do differently? You just going to stop and go, "Oh, I'm just going to not do calls. I'm going to do emails today."
Mhm.
I don't think that's the right move. Or I'm going to go do LinkedIn for a couple of hours. It's like, first of all, LinkedIn takes months,
Mhm.
weeks, months. So, you're not going to convert on LinkedIn in a minute. Although yesterday I actually did get a meeting off LinkedIn. But it's like, yeah, you have to figure out how to have conversations, and you have to be open minded to the fact that when you do have that conversation with either a below the line person, manager, or otherwise, that
Mhm.
it's a great opportunity for you to learn something, so you can have a deeper conversation, a more effective conversation with the DM when you finally get them on the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And learn something, like you said, like if find out if you're even barking up the right tree, right? Say, hey, you say, hey, Miss Secretary, like I was reaching out to Jim and I saw he was the VP of finance, but I wasn't sure if what I was calling about is even in his wheelhouse. Oh, well, what do you do? Well, we typically help with X, Y, and Z. Like, does that sound like something he'd be open to talking about? You know, and then you just take it from there. You're either going to get a yeah, probably, or no, not so much. Like, talk to somebody else, or he's in a meeting or whatever. But like, at least you tried. Like, shoot your shot. If you got somebody there, yeah, give it a go. See what happens.
Right, right. Especially if you're not talking, if you haven't had conversations, or even if you had one or two, you still got to, and that's what builds the momentum. Because then now, when you actually do get, let's say, the next dial on the phone, you'll have all of that. I used to say, like, work out all the kinks in the mouth. Like, because then early in the morning, you say, oh, call early in the morning. Like, Steve is always big on calling in the morning. And I've proven it. You've proven it. Set 3 meetings on a Monday morning, 3 meetings on a Friday night. It's like,
Yep.
you know, you, if you're not saying what you want to say, or talking about the value and this and that and all those things that you would have a conversation about, if you're not doing it, then when the time comes for you to do it, you'll be taken by surprise almost. It's not going to be good, right? Like, even yesterday, I had a caller where I just felt like, both me and my principal were on the phone, and it was a deal for us potentially. And I just felt like we were beating a dead horse. And my gut told me I just got to be personal. And, earlier in the call, he was kind of like throwing out all these things about how great his company is and this. So I kind of read him as being a little bit more, having a little bit of an ego.
Hmm.
And so towards the end of the call, where I felt like it was slipping away, I just got real egotistical with him. And he goes, well, what's the difference between you and these others? And I said, me. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You get me. I didn't know what else to say. Like, I just, like, it was like this gut thing that just said, like, I'm just gonna say this. And I'm like, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, brother, I am probably one of the best in the world. I've trained my team to do that. You can be sure that, yeah, could I set meetings for you? Absolutely. But I want to set meetings that stick. I want to help you understand who your ICP is a little bit better than you do, because he even admitted, he's like, we're kind of a little wide right now.
Hmm.
And so I just thought it was like, just something go with your gut, I think, is what was the lesson I'm trying to put out here, is when you feel like your gut tells you to say something, say it. You have nothing to lose. Nothing.
Yeah.
So.
But I,
Well, hey
I
man,
think
you got to jump off at 9. That's cool. It was a good show. Again, we were supposed to have Ron Naranja from Dooley on, but considering the situation over there right now, he preferred to wait, and so we wish all those folks at Dooley who've got let go, reach out to Celex, reach out to me. I'm happy
yep.
to serve you up to anybody in my community, get you guys a job. And then we'll have Ron here next week. So check us out next week. Zach, take us away, man.
Sure. Yeah, doors open. I appreciate everybody that stopped by. Good to see some familiar faces and friendly folks here in the chat. Next week, 8 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, and we'll see you then.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Take care.